So now you've casted on all your stitches and you're ready to begin knitting. Before we start, I would like to point out that I knit Continental, which means I hold the working yarn in my left hand versus holding it in the right. Regardless how you knit, whether it's the American, which is holding it in the right, or Continental, like I do in the left, the stitch is identical. And the way you enter it is identical. So when you're watching me knit, please don't get confused. Just watch how we're going into the stitch because it will be exactly the same. Now that your stitches are all in order, the thing I would like to mention is that when you do a long tail cast on, your first row you knit is a wrong side row. Keep that in mind because when you start making garments, you're going to need to know that. But for now, just make sure your stitches are all up. The little guys are all on their needles, sitting as they should. And we're going to begin. The hardest part of knitting, whether you're Continental or American, it doesn't matter, is controlling the tension of your working yarn. You can only practice and try different things to find your own way. I just put it in between my middle finger and my ring finger, my index finger, because it just works best for me. I tend to be a tight knitter, and if I wind it around too many fingers, it just gets too tight. But you have to experiment. You want to push your stitches down as close as you can to the tip of your needle. You're going to enter the first stitch on the needle from the front to the back, just like rubbing two sticks together. Bring the working yarn over the top of that right needle, just like this. You're bringing it around clockwise, and then you're going to bring it back through the stitch you're already in right here. Here's the new stitch. This is important. Be sure you slide that new stitch down on the shank of this needle. If you keep it here, it's going to get too tight, way too tight. So make sure you slide it off and then just drop this off the end of your needle. No pulling, no tugging. You don't want to do that because it just makes your tension all over the place. In, around, back through the stitch. Now picking is the slang, and you see once I get going here where that slang comes from. Continental's always been known as picking because you're picking the yarn right off your middle finger. Some people just go like this and bring it around. I just pick it. And I just keep my thumb on my left hand to feed those stitches up and just keep them coming onto the needle so that I don't have to pull or stretch it to go down and get them. So this method, or like say if you're going to wind it around, either way is okay. Now, the other thing you want to keep in mind, if you let this finger on your left hand get too long, too far away from the needle, you see what happens? You lose all your tension and it gets really difficult to grab that yarn. So you may have to stop, reposition, and then begin again. Okay, so just grab, oops, that happens. Always watch the last one. They want to jump off sometimes and not be knit. And now you've completed one row. And that's the knit stitch.